I gotta tell you, Tommy, these are my favorite kinds of videos, old versus older. Behind us, we have two cousin German off-roaders. That's right, German off-roaders. I said it. Tell them what we got.
Yeah, so we've got our 2004 Touareg, the Tough T, and our 2012 Porsche Cayenne Turbo. Both of them have off-road tires, and we're gonna take them up our Ironclad's off-road trail today
to see which one is better. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, how can a Porsche Cayenne and a Touareg go off-road? Well, stay tuned.
Some of you out there may be surprised to know that the Touareg and the Cayenne nameplates both share the same chassis. However, today we actually have two different generations of cars. So our 2004 Touareg would have shared a platform with the first generation Cayenne, which looks like a 911 sucking a lemon, if you forgot what that one looks like. And then the new Cayenne shares this platform with the newer Touareg, which looks like kind of a lifted Passat. So although they are very similar, at least in philosophy, these are two very different eras of car.
There's one big difference between these two cousins. The 2004 Touareg, our Tough T, has a low-speed transfer case. The 2012 Porsche Cayenne, what we're calling the Trans Rockies, does not. But that doesn't mean it's not as capable. Or maybe it does. Only one way to find out. Tommy, why don't you tell them about the upgrades we've done to both of these vehicles?
Now, the only thing we've really done to the Touareg here is a big set of tires. These are oversized BFG KO2 tires mounted on an undersized 17-inch rim, and these Touaregs have air suspension, locking rear diffs, locking center diffs, and a low range, like my dad said. Now, the way we've made the Cayenne Turbo more off-road worthy is we have put on orange stickers and plastered up the wheels bright orange. But in all seriousness, this also has a set of off-road tires. They're a little bit bigger than stock. They're Falcon Wild Peaks. Now, I really wanted to put KO2s on this Cayenne Turbo just like that Touareg, but I couldn't because this is kind of a really weird size. It's one of the only sizes that would fit on this vehicle. And that's because this is a turbo, which means it's got huge brakes, and you can't put smaller than a 19-inch wheel on these turbos without running into the actual calipers. So you kind of have to stick with a big wheel and then go as big as a tire as possible without rubbing the fenders.
Now, when the second generation Cayenne first came out, Porsche made a big deal that it lost 400 pounds, which is great when you're on the track. But it lost that 400 pounds because it lost the low-range transfer case, which is not great when you're off-road. However, we did find the one of the only ones, I think, with a locking rear diff. And Porsche made that first gear much slower to kind of give it enough bandwidth to actually be used off-road. That Touareg does have a low-range transfer case, which is certainly going to help it going up and over the Ironclads.
Now, kind of the secret sauce in both of these vehicles is the air suspension, because they both ride on unibody construction platforms and they both use independent suspension. So to give them the clearance, both Volkswagen and Porsche added height adjustable air suspension. It was an expensive option on the Touareg, but it means that in its highest height, it will actually have almost 12 inches of ground clearance, and that Cayenne in its highest height will have almost 11 inches of ground clearance.
At this point, you may be wondering, why do we cover our Cayenne with orange stickers that say Cayenne Trans Rockies 2020? And that's basically an homage to the Trans-Siberia Cayenne that Porsche built and actually raced back in the day.
So I'm a big fan of pushing things that make other things do stuff, and the Touareg and the Cayenne both have some really fun buttons that you can play with. So first of all, to engage low range in this Volkswagen, I push in on this dial and it rises out of the dash like a jet fighter. Then I flick it into the first position to engage the low range transfer case, a second position to engage a center differential lock, and then this one also has the optional rear differential lock, which is yet a fourth position. I also have various damping controls for the suspension, so I'm going to go into comfort to make it soft and articulate better. And then for the air suspension, I'm going to go into off-road height, but in case I need a little bit extra clearance, there's also an extra mode, which puts this vehicle up way on its tippy toes just to clear the biggest rocks.
So there are two tests that we're going to try, and they're both pretty hard. First, the Razor rocks. See if the locking diff will get us over these very sharp rocks, and then we'll see which of the two can get farthest up the mountain in the snow. And that's really a test of tires, but it's also a test of the all-wheel drive system. So, first up, Touareg. We know how tough that is. Let's see how it does up the Razor rocks.
In the Touareg, I'm actually going to start off in low range, lock the center diff, and then I've got the air suspension on off-road height, not the max mode because you lose all articulation up there, it gets really firm, but just your standard off-road height. Now, it's not hard to make an SUV or a car perform well on-road. I mean, something like an X5 or X6, especially the M's, are really good at that, and it's not really all that hard to make an SUV perform well off-road. Something like a Wrangler or, I don't know, an old Defender are also really good at that, but making the two exist in one vehicle is almost impossible, and that's what both the Touareg and the Cayenne do super well, because it really is a lot of technology and a lot of sophistication that has to be engineered into the platform for it to, you know, cruise down the Autobahn, in this case at 140, and then crawl up the Razor Rocks in low range. It's also very expensive. So, coming up to the steps here, I'm gonna try to take them slow, because they are pretty high. Okay, there you go. So we got some slippage, but the Touareg is actually a really sophisticated traction control system. As I say, immediately get stuck. I'm actually going to lock up the rear diff for this. It's going to be harder than I thought it would be.
He's already stuck just getting to the Razor Rocks.
All right, snow is really a turd off-road. Let me give it a little bit of a bump. All right.
Get the rear diff lock?
Yep. Try going more this direction. Give it just a little bit of speed just to get over the crest. This has not gone well.
Try one more time with momentum.
How am I doing on clearance?
You're good, no problem with clearance. So it snowed over the weekend, and really what's happening is the snow is just losing all the traction. There he goes.
There we go. We just had to give it a little bit of oomph, and the Touareg figured it out. I'm always scared of using momentum off-road, especially in these luxury German SUVs, because even though they're really great off-road, this one doesn't have any underbody protection. So when you start using speed, you start scraping on stuff, and that's when you start running into issues.
As you can tell, these sharp rocks are called the Razor Rocks. It's really a test of traction and articulation, and the danger is that tree. If you get it wrong, you slide into the tree. So Tommy, you want to try it?
Yeah.
He says yes. So we'll give it a go.
All right, so for the Razor Rocks, I'm actually going to go into Extra, which is the most high setting for the air suspension. It really jacks it up high, and I need every bit of clearance I can get. I've got my center and my rear diff locked, and we're going to see one of the issues with the Touareg. Even though it's really good on-road and really good off-road, in order to do that, they had to make it super heavy. So even this V8 Touareg, which isn't even the V10 diesel, weighs well over 5,000 pounds, like 5,400 pounds, somewhere in that area. Whereas a diesel is actually even more heavy. That's like 5,700 pounds. So I'm gonna try to avoid this tree. Come on.
Whoa, whoa!
I got plenty of room. We're good. I need a front locker.
Okay, that's enough time.
Yeah, there's just not enough traction on the snow. Not enough traction on the snow. Man, these things are so heavy. Golly, they're heavy.
All right, I didn't think we're gonna make up the Razor Rocks of this much snow, so he's gonna go around, and I will see how far we can make it up the mountain. Is he gonna do truth or dare? That's the question. Whoa, he may even get up. Yeah, he'll do it. Maybe. Truth or dare is next.
Man, I just need every bit of traction I can get, so I'm gonna re-lock it up here. There we go. Super easy engagement of the rear locker in this truck or car. Well, SUV, well, tank really. Oh yes, good job, Volkswagen. Solid work. It is steeper than it looks on camera, I pinky swear. And this 4.2 liter V8 makes a fairly respectable 310 horsepower, which sounds like a lot, but when you consider just the absolute girth of this thing, it's really not all that much. And the 6-speed automatic, especially in the low range, has tons and tons and tons of gearing.
Nice work, dude.
Oh, yeah.
Truth or dare?
Probably dare.
Okay, dare is ice covered and steeper. Truth is a little bit
Oh, you're out of
easier.
breath.
Yeah, it's 9,000 feet above sea level here.
You need a Touareg.
Yeah, all right, good luck.
All right,
Go
ready?
for it, yeah.
All right, here we go, up the icy part of dare. Wow, no problem. Oh, shit, I always say that. This always happens. There we go. All right. So these KO2 tires are pretty good, actually, in the snow. These are snow rated, and they do perform fairly well. They're not as good as a, you know, proper snow tire, but then good luck finding an oversized snow tire in this size. I'm a little bit worried about this, though. I don't want to go sliding into that tree, which is exactly what is happening. All right, don't hit the tree, don't hit the tree. Sounds like the Titanic. Alrighty. So first gear, low range. Let's see how the crawl ratio is coming down here. It's really good. Now the good news is if I do hit the tree, I'm potentially damaging $4,600 for the car versus the Cayenne, which cost us 22 grand. Alrighty. Not bad at all. How are the brakes? Oh, that was not good. They just locked up immediately there. So low range first gear is much better than locking them up in terms of slowing down.
I was amazed at how much ground clearance this Touareg gets when you jack it up all the way to its highest height.
Oh, for sure. And it's a little stiff, though. It's very stiff in its high setting. It's like this, ready?
Yeah.
It's just very uncomfortable, but it does give you a lot of ground clearance.
You know what's crazy? We paid, what, $5,000 for this car? And I would say it's 90% as capable as a Jeep Wrangler.
Sport, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. It's,
Even a Rubicon is probably 80% as capable. I mean, they're just so good off-road, and I'd love to be able to show you more if we didn't have all the snow. We could go higher, but they're just, I mean, it's amazing what Volkswagen did to these things to make them go where they can go.
yeah, you know, outside of a G-Wagon, right? This is about the most off-road worthy German passenger car you can buy. You know, I was thinking people are going to say Unimog, but that's really not a passenger car.
Right, that's more of a commercial truck. And they are still pretty good on road. It's, as we'll talk about in the Cayenne, it's certainly not as fast or as fun to drive as the Cayenne on road, but it's very comfortable. It's super quiet because I can't emphasize to you how much just like stuff they put in this vehicle to deaden the sound. I mean, it must have cost a whole army of sheep to make this thing as quiet as it is. The Cayenne Turbo here also has a bunch of fun buttons I can push. Well, actually, they're toggle switches, which in some ways is even cooler. So first of all, the four-wheel drive system. If I push this left toggle up once, it goes into off-road mode. That's going to program the four-wheel drive system and the traction control for the most aggressive terrain. Push it up again, I get a second light here. That's going to lock the center differential, and push it up yet a third time, and that's going to lock the rear differential. Now, my dad talked about this, but this Cayenne has a very rare option to have a differential lock. Not many of the cars had them. I also have adjustable suspension stiffness, just like that old Volkswagen, so I'm going to go into comfort, which will be the most comfortable. And then in terms of height on the suspension, if I push it up once, it'll raise a little bit. Push it up again, and it will raise all the way up on its tippy toes, just like the Touareg. So I'm going to go high level 2, I think, in this car, because it's got a little bit less ground clearance. I'm going to do center locked diff to start with, and then we're going to go up the mountain.
Now at this first obstacle, which is the beginning of the ironclad trail, the Volkswagen got stuck, and Tommy momentum. And it really is also a test of the tires, how they do in snow. But let's see how our Trans Rockies Cayenne does in the same place. And then let's see if it can make it all the way to the top of the mountain.
Right, 2012 Porsche Cayenne Turbo. Now a little bit of background behind this vehicle. We bought this a few months back for $22,000. It has 119,000 miles and everything works on it. So, less expensive than your average Subaru Crosstrek. And unlike your average Subaru Crosstrek, this has bright orange wheels and some stickers on the side. Oh yeah, and 500 horsepower. So let's see how $130,000 SUV when new does off-road. Now, this is actually our first time ever taking this Cayenne off-road, which I'm super excited about, and I wish the conditions were so much better, because even though this was a $22,000 car when new, fixing it is super expensive because you're still paying new Porsche prices. Isn't working well though. Gearing isn't as good either, actually. Wow, but that was actually easier than the Volkswagen. What the heck?
Holy cow! It made that same obstacle look easy. What the heck is going on with that? Maybe you get more when you pay more.
Now, even though the gearing isn't as good, I do have 516 pound-feet of torque, and the first gear is actually surprisingly short, so yeah, I'd say that was pretty good.
All right, once again, Razor Rocks, same obstacle. Let's see how the Porsche does. The one thing I have noticed is the fan's on. That could be a transmission fan because it doesn't have that low range. Or it could just be because you've got 500 horsepower of twin turbo under the hood and it needs to cool down.
Here we go. First gear. So far, so good. This is where it's gonna get interesting though. Nope. I don't want to slip into that tree. No, that's it. It's sliding into the tree. It was a good effort, but it isn't going to happen today. Maybe when the snow dries. The 8-speed automatic in this is a little bit different than the 6-speed in the Touareg. It's actually two gears different. But first gear is surprisingly short. They did do a good job of programming it for off-road use. Ooh. Alright, let's see if we can get up this little step. Alrighty, there we go. Not bad at all. I'm not sure these tires perform quite as well in the snow as those KO2s, but I was so limited when looking for tires in this Cayenne Turbo just because the wheels are so big and I can't go any smaller. I will say that the off-road traction control programming is much better. It's just more advanced, it engages the brakes quicker. But the gearing isn't quite as good and the suspension height isn't quite as just insane as a Touareg.
Truth or dare? I think I know the answer. You're pointing up dare.
Yeah, let's try dare.
All right, go for it.
I'll give it a whirl.
Those two lockers really pay dividends.
Yeah, they work really well. The tires are doing pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure they're as good as KO2s.
Yeah.
And they're certainly not as good as a dedicated snow.
We're about to find out.
We're about to find out.
Go for it.
Okay, here we go. Got my locker locked. So far, so good. Grip, grip, grip. Ooh. Man, that turbo just wants to spool up and launch me into a tree. Please don't do that, car. 15 PSI worth of boost right into an Aspen is not what I'm looking for today. Alright, so it went up there, no problem. I did take it with just a little bit of speed. Now I do actually have a hill descent control button on this car, which I can engage like that. How does that work? I've never used this before. Ooh, that's pretty cool. Is it adjustable? I think it is adjustable, actually. Alright. Going down the hill. Please don't slide. This car is lighter than the Touareg, but not much lighter. And it still feels like 130 grand. I mean, it's just so nice in here. The Touareg is covered in leather and walnut, but this is covered in nicer leather and aluminum. Alright. Oh, it is adjustable, so it adjusts to the speed that you set when you use the brake. Interesting. So that's 2. Oh, that's a really good system. That works super well. All right. Creeping on down. Ground clearance, not quite as good as the Touareg, but still really impressive. I would take, honestly, I would take this off-road over any Forester or Crosstrek or Outback. It's just more ground clearance, more power, more torque, twice the lockers. What else do you need? Low range would be good, but we're making do.
So tell me, we paid $22,000 for this car, which is about $17,000 more than the Touareg. So is it $17,000 better off-road?
No, it's not. I don't think it's actually any better off-road. But
wait, hold on. It just went up that first obstacle.
Yes, I know.
Without any.
That was impressive.
Yeah.
That was very impressive. But I think part of that was maybe due to line. And I just, without a low range, I mean, it kind of limits the places you can go. But this is still really amazing. It still is so good off-road. I mean, gee whiz, guys. 130 grand when new, but they baked in so much off-road tech, even in a 170 mile an hour SUV.
Yeah, you know, we do a lot of testing of crossovers and SUVs, and the more locking diffs you add, the better the vehicle becomes. We just did a Highlander all-wheel drive up here, and it didn't even get to the first obstacle.
Right.
Because it just didn't have the all-wheel drive system. But when you can lock the center diff, when you can lock the rear diff, you've got yourself a pretty incredible off-roader, even if it doesn't have a low range.
Come the steps, which are going to be the real challenge here for the Highlander. I don't think I'm going to have enough clearance here, but we'll see what happens. This just has a really bad approach angle.
You see the problem, Tommy?
Yeah, there's no way I'm going to be clearing this first ledge, and there's no way around it either.
I mean, you'll hit this, right, and you'll scrape that up, and you'll tear it off, and then I gotta call Toyota, and then you guys are gonna be like, why didn't you go over the bump? And I'll be like, because it's not our car, and we don't want to tear off the front fascia. Now, Tommy, we called the Touareg the tough T because it's tough as nails, and we keep proving it over and over again. Now, of course, the Cayenne Trans Rockies is the world's fastest overlander.
Yeah, sure.
But which one do you like better?
Well, you know, honestly, I don't think the Cayenne is quite as good as a Touareg off-road, but that's like saying a snowmobile isn't as good as like a snowcat in the snow. Yes, it's still amazing. I would argue that that Cayenne is probably just as good as like a Grand Cherokee off-road. So it'll go so much further than you'd ever expect it to go, just maybe not quite as far as the Touareg.
You know what? If you add them together, you get to 27,000. Mm-hmm. And let me put this proposition to you guys. Would you rather have a Touareg and a Cayenne turbo, or an Outback, brand new?
That's true.
I know which one I'd rather have, and they're sitting right back there. Guys, thanks for watching. As always, this is Roman.
And Tommy. Head over to tflcar.com for the latest and greatest in weird, kind of quirky off-road German mashups.
Plus, think about it. How many horsepower does it?
Yes, but think about how much maintenance that would cost.
No.
over 10
How many
years.
horsepower does an Outback have? Like 200, right?
Yes, but how much horsepower does it?
800 almost.
How much?
800 horsepower.
How much horsepower does it have in a garage waiting for a head gasket?
Has any of these broken yet?
No.
There you go. Ciao.
Yes, Cayenne broke once. Remember? It broke once.
Battery died.
No, we had the valve thing in the rear.